Good evening. We appear to have had challenges on with our message to the public, but just to confirm, the executive session will continue for another 10 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Council needs approximately 5 more minutes, so the executive session or the meeting will actually start about 6:55. Thank you for your continued patience.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Good evening and Happy New Year. It's nice to put the memorable behind us and welcome the new year. This is the first regular video meeting of the council this year. I'm Mayor Benson Wong. Prior to tonight's virtual city council meeting, council held a executive session for approximately 100, I think it was 110 minutes or so via Microsoft Teams to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation to which the city is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the city as provided in RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren, small I, close paren, and to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against a public official or employee as provided in RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren F, close paren. No action was taken. Tonight's virtual city council meeting is being brought to you using the video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. We also are broadcasting live on MITV channel 21 and on the city's YouTube channel. City Manager Jesse Vaughn and some other staff members will be participating in tonight's meeting while in the City Council chambers and maintaining the recommended social distance. City Attorney Beal Park and other staff members will be participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or using the Zoom teleconferencing application. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. City Council members, please have your microphones turned on when the City Clerk, Deb Estrada, conducts a roll call during the meeting. City Clerk will be conducting these roll calls so that we accurately capture everybody's vote. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Benson Wong.
Who's doing the flags?
Deputy Mayor Wendy Weicker.
Here.
Who's doing the
Councilmember
flags?
Lisa Anderall.
Okay.
Here.
Councilmember Jake Jacobson.
Here.
Councilmember Salim Neese.
Here.
Councilmember Craig Reynolds.
Here.
And Councilmember Dave Rosenbaum.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, to ensure that only the U.S. flag is visible, please consider turning off your video camera or stepping out of the view of your camera. And please join Deputy Mayor Weicker in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, I do apologize. We have a technical error. The flag did not screen share appropriately during the Pledge of Allegiance. We're having a couple issues tonight. We have no heat in chambers and my lighting is off. If it is your pleasure, we'd be happy to do the flag salute again appropriately. I do need to ask staff for assistance in getting the screen share.
Is the screen share, has it been corrected?
Yeah. Stand by, yes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Weicker, why don't you go ahead and lead us in the pledge one more time? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do apologize. Dusting off the cobwebs after a couple weeks off. We will get that resolved for the next meeting. City Council, please accept my apologies.
Okay. Hopefully they'll turn on the heat as well for you. We now move to our first item of business, which is to approve the agenda. Before entertaining a motion, I want to mention that Governor Inslee's proclamation number 20-28.14 regarding the Open Public Meetings Act has extended the statutory waivers and suspensions through January 19. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
I would like to so move to amend the agenda to include an additional executive session following the end of the open session, followed by a subsequent open session where action may be taken.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reynolds to add an executive session at the end of the meeting. It's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Weicker. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The roll call will be for the amendment. Councilmember Anderl.
I would like to record a strong no on this because I believe that it would be a,
Okay,
yeah. I believe that this is going to deprive the public of meaningful notice of this action that could potentially be taken. And so I'm strongly opposed to this amendment.
Councilmember Anderl, once voting is started, we can't speak to the motion.
The vote.
Okay, well, I thought that typically there was an opportunity to speak to the motion, but
City Clerk,
We have-
continue the roll call, please. And again, just for the votes.
Councilmember Anderl,
nay.
Councilmember Jacobson. You're on mute, Mr. Councilmember Jacobson?
I'm going to pass for the moment.
Councilmember Neese?
Nay.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum?
Hi, I have some more questions.
Deputy Mayor Weicker?
Aye.
And Mayor Wong?
Aye. Now we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Is there, somebody want to make that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Jake didn't vote.
Abstain?
Councilmember, City Clerk, what's the procedure here?
Councilmember Jacobson simply said he was not going to vote at this time. I don't know if he still wishes to vote. He's going
I'll
to.
abstain.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, we do have a motion to amend the agenda. I'm sorry, to approve the agenda as amended. It's been moved by Councilmember, I believe, was it Reynolds again, or?
Weicker, I believe. I
I'm
second.
sorry, Deputy Mayor Weicker, and then was seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Neese?
Nay.
Member Anderl?
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Weicker?
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds? Councilmember Reynolds?
I did say aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Nay.
I'm sorry, was that a nay or a?
Nay.
Thank you. Mayor Wong
Aye.
and Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Motion to amend passes 4-3.
Thank you. For this meeting, we continue to utilize the Zoom platform. The council member
I
had,
have a point of order. That was actually not a motion to amend. That was the motion. Agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct. It wasn't a motion to amend. It was a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
as amended. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Again, we're going to utilize the Zoom platform. If a council member has a question, please raise his or her hand. I'll do my best to recognize the order in which the hands have been raised. After being recognized, you may ask your question. Council, please try to limit yourself to one question and to one clarifying question at a time so that each council member is given an opportunity to ask a question before the council member asks a second question. As a reminder to those listening this evening or planning to speak during the public appearances, there is a 1-hour study session prior to the city manager's report and public appearances tonight. So the first item this evening is a study session. And I appreciate the folks from King County for your patience because of our extended executive session. This is Agenda Bill 5793. It's the King County presentation on the urban growth capacity study and King County planning policies growth target update process. Interim Community Planning and Development Director Jeff Thomas will introduce tonight's guest. Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. And for the record, Jeff Thomas, Interim CPD Director with the city. I'd like to first introduce our King County staff that have been so gracious to join us here this evening, Rebecca Maskin and Karen Wolf from King County. This item this evening, staff did provide a general baseline of information in the agenda bill. It's in your packet. Essentially, we're at the beginning of a process which will culminate with the adoption of the periodic update to the comprehensive plan sometime on or before June 30th, 2024. So this is a good start that we have here this evening with the county staff joining us. And without further ado, I'd like to invite Rebecca and Karen to video in, and I'll let them provide any further introductions they wish and get the presentation started.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rebecca Maskin from King County Regional Planning. I'd share my video. I'm unable to share right now, so unless you'll just have to deal with my picture for the time being. But I'm going to start the presentation and hand it over to my colleague, Karen Wolf, to kick off our presentation today.
Hey, Rebecca, it's Jessie Bond, the city manager. I just wanted to let you know your audio is coming in a little soft. If you could just speak up a touch, that would be great.
You got it.
Thanks.
Okay. Hi, I'm Karen Wolf with King County, and my job is to staff the Growth Management Planning Council, and the Growth Management Planning Council is responsible for approving the countywide planning policies. So what we're going to do tonight is kind of give you a quick overview of the Growth Management Act to just kind of ground you in that foundational legislation. I'll talk a little bit about the Growth Management Planning Council, the countywide planning policies, and then Rebecca will go into more detail on growth targets and the schedule. So just to give you some foundation to the Growth Management Act. So again, it was adopted in 1990. So we've been operating under the GMA now for over 30 years. And it provides guidance to both regionally and then to individual jurisdictions. So it provides guidance to the multi-county planning policies, which were just approved by the Puget Sound Regional Council in October of this year, and that's called Vision 2050. Vision 2050, in turn, provides guidance to the countywide planning policies. So each of the counties within Puget Sound region are adopting countywide planning policies. We've had countywide planning policies in effect since 1992. They were updated in 2008, and we're looking at an update now. Then these documents, in turn, along with the State Growth Management Act, actually provide direction to each city's comprehensive plan. And as was mentioned earlier by your planning director, city comprehensive plans in King County are required to be completed by June 30th, 2024. So the work we're doing today is providing that guidance and that foundational work towards your comprehensive plan update, which again guides the zoning code and in turn the built environment, development and construction. So what is the Growth Management Planning Council? Salim Neese is a member of the Growth Management Planning Council, one of your council members who has been appointed by the Sound Cities Association. The Growth Management Planning Council was established in 1992 via interlocal agreement. It has been convened since then and is today by the county executive. So it is chaired by King County Executive Dow Constantine. We have members representing King County, the City of Seattle, and the Sound Cities Association. We also have ex officio members, so non-voting members representing special purpose districts, school districts, and the Port of Seattle. So the main focus of the GMPC, and the reason it was formed in '92, is to oversee the development and amendments and the implementation of the county-wide planning policies. So this includes a setting of the urban growth area, the establishment of growth targets, which we'll be talking about a little later tonight, policies for topics that are countywide nature that cross jurisdictional lines. So including transportation policies, policies regarding environmental protection, and so on. The Growth Management Planning Council does not have regulatory authority. What their job is to make a recommendation to the King County Council. And then what happens after the King County Council approves either the policies or amendments to the policies is they go out to the cities for ratification. Ratification is complete after approval by the King County Council, and then amendments, within 90 days of that by county and cities representing at least 70% of the population and 30% of those jurisdictions. And so while the Growth Management Planning Council is making a recommendation, the County Council adopts it, ratification ensures that all cities, all jurisdictions in King County have an opportunity to review any amendments or changes to the countywide planning policies. Next slide, please. So what are the countywide planning policies? Well, it's a land use document that includes policies, again, not regulations, but policies to guide the comprehensive plans of both the county and the 39 cities in the county. They provide, they establish the urban growth area boundary. I know that's not much of an issue for Mercer Island, where you're fully within the urban growth area without any property on the boundary. But nonetheless, that's the purpose of the countywide planning policies, is to establish that urban growth boundary, to establish the criteria for revising the boundary, to establish growth targets for each jurisdiction, for criteria for defining urban centers and the manufacturing and industrial centers. And again, as I mentioned earlier, policies for issues of a countywide nature. So for any of those topical issues that cross jurisdictional boundaries. So why are we updating the countywide planning policies now? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's Vision 2050 that provides the sort of foundation for the countywide planning policies. They established the regional centers framework, which we'll be talking about a little bit later today. So the last time the CPPs were adopted was in 2008, after Vision 2040 was approved, or I'm sorry, Vision 2040 was approved in 2008, and the countywide planning policies were amended in 2012 to reflect the changes in Vision 2040. We'll also have new growth targets that will be included in the countywide planning policies, and these are important to get those in place now so it can provide that guidance for the 2024 comprehensive plans. And it'll provide policy guidance as well for those plans. We also want to deal with policy and legislative changes that have taken place since 2012. These include changes to the Sound Transit 3 wasn't in place in 2012. There's other policies of statewide nature, and for example, the urban growth capacity buildable lands reports, new legislation, and so on. And then what's very important to many of our elected officials, our community, is the affordable housing work that's going on by the GMPC's Affordable Housing Committee. And so it's for all of these reasons that we're updating the countywide planning policies now. So back in June, the Growth Management Planning Council approved the guiding principles to guide how these the policies would take place, or the update would take place. And so they create a statement of agreement on how they would be updated to guide the 2024 comprehensive plans. The guiding policies define the scope and the context for the update and provide an opportunity for stakeholder engagement. So real quickly, we'll just review what the guiding principles are. The Growth Management Planning Council has told us they would like us to establish a focused scope for review based on the 2012 baseline. So we're not looking at a complete rewrite, but rather an update, make them more relevant, and provide that continuity to changes that have occurred since 2012. We've been directed to center social equity and health, as has the 2050 Vision 2050, and to integrate regional policy and legislative changes, as I mentioned earlier, Vision 2050, amendments to the Growth Management Act, Sound Transit 3, for example, King County's 4-to-1 program changes, and as also I mentioned earlier, recommendations from Growth Management Planning Council's Affordable Housing Committee. The Growth Management Planning Council has directed us to provide clear and actionable direction for the city comprehensive plan and to implement the regional growth strategy, again, that's established in Vision 2050, with targets, growth targets to the year 2040 as required by state law, that will form the land use basis for the periodic updates of the comprehensive plans. Next slide, please. So we have, to give you just a quick overview of the countywide planning policies, that there's 6 chapters, main chapters. The first on the environment, and the focus on this update is to make sure that we have policies that address access to the healthy environment. In development patterns, we're talking about access to high opportunity areas for all, and we're revising our centers criteria based on Vision 2050. In housing, this is the chapter we expect quite a lot of change, and to create affordable housing in areas with reliable and easy access to job centers. And again, this is based on the work that the Regional Affordable Housing Task Force completed and now is being carried forward by the Affordable Housing Committee. We then have the economy chapter, again, to look at prioritizing a diversity of living wage jobs throughout the county. Transportation, emphasizing an equitable transportation system that is safe for all users. And then finally, our public and facilities and services chapter to broaden our reliance, or broaden our resilience rather, and recovery to include awareness of communications within these communities. So we'll be talking a lot about in this broadband access, especially in our rural areas. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca, who's going to zero in on the growth targets process, which is part of the countywide planning policies.
Thanks, Karen. So I will take the council through a step-by-step review of how we create growth targets, spending a little bit of time on each step. And included in that, we'll talk about the allocations to both King County as a whole and each regional geography. And then we'll briefly touch on next steps and schedule. So before I get started into the technical steps of creating targets, I'll just quickly visit what growth targets are. So as Karen said, the growth targets are a component of the countywide planning policies, and as such, they are a policy statement themselves, really about the amount or the number of housing units and jobs that each jurisdiction is expecting to plan for and accommodate in the 2024 comprehensive plans. Every jurisdiction in King County, including urban unincorporated King County, has a role in accommodating growth, and that role is tailored to both the regional geography and the relative size and role that each jurisdiction plays within the county. We're looking for that local information to guide the development of our growth targets, for example. We only create growth targets for the urban area, so that is just the 39 cities in the urban unincorporated area. We create individual targets for planned potential annexation areas. And these targets last for at least a 20-year period. So this, our set of growth targets that we will be creating will cover roughly 2020 to 2044, which is the horizon year for the 2024 update of the comprehensive plans. And this is a collaborative process. So King County staff is a facilitator of this process through our interjurisdictional team of the Growth Management Planning Council, but so King County is not assigning growth targets to individual jurisdictions. We are looking for a broad participation from all jurisdictions in King County so that we can create the growth targets that we want to plan for in our comprehensive plans in the next periodic update. So there are 5 key steps to creating the growth targets, and the first 4 of them are fairly technical and helped greatly along by the regional growth strategy. And then the 5th and final stage is really more deliberative, and where we focus on creating a set of draft growth targets that will ultimately be finalized and approved by the Growth Management Planning Council. The big picture I want to get across with this slide is really this is a process that starts off at a regional level and then moves on down to a countywide level, to regional geographies, and then to individual jurisdictions themselves. So now I'm going to step through each one of those processes. So the growth targets really starts off with a regional forecast. In the Growth Management Act, counties are required to plan for a number within the Office of Financial Management population projections. And in the Central Puget Sound region, we additionally plan growth targets for employment as well. And we typically look to the PSRC forecast for that. Our county partners, the other 3 counties within the PSRC region, we've collaborated on both targets guidance and have collaboratively determined that we will be using the PSRC regional forecast as a starting place for our target setting process. So that's where our regional projections of population and jobs are coming from. Now, these forecasts were created or developed in 2018. They're driving Vision 2050. So of course, they at that time didn't have the kind of information about the COVID-19 pandemic and the changes that we are all experiencing right now inherent in that. There's still a lot of uncertainty about whether the trends that we are experiencing right now, for example, working at home and the location of different folks around the region is quite different right now. So we don't have a lot of great information about that topic right now to go in and really revise or update that forecast. And we're not unique in that. But I would like to say that even before we had any idea that a pandemic was upon us, we do have time built into our schedule towards the end of I think 2022, where we will have another chance. OFM will release another population projection, and we will have a chance to take a look at the assumptions inherent within our forecast and ensure that they are aligned with the future that we have been planning for up until that date. So it's always our intention to use the best available information possible to use included in our forecasts. But at this time, we don't have the most up-to-date information, nor do we have a sense about whether how much the scale of these trends are going to continue into the future for how long. So we're using the best forecasts that we have for now from around 2018, and we will continue doing that until we have some better information about how we can adjust them into the future. I'll also note that we have a terrible practice, or no practice, but just fortune that we've created growth targets and our CPPs in the last recession and right about the previous recession about that. So we are not doing too great in terms of timing relating to our forecasts. But looking at trends from PSRC, in the long run, these forecasts really do tend to play out pretty well according to the numbers that were forecasted. So once that we've got our set of forecasts for the region, the next step is to divide that forecast down to the county level. And we look to the regional growth strategy to do that. So the regional growth strategy from Vision 2050 tells us about 50% of the population and almost 60% of the jobs in the Central Puget Sound region will be accommodated in King County. So we apply those percentages to the forecast from the last step, and then we have countywide population and job allocations to move forward in this process. The next step in the process is pretty similar to the last step, but it is taking that countywide projection and allocating it to individual regional geographies. So regional geography is kind of a term of art that's used in the regional growth strategy that to describe groups of cities that have similar characteristics. So Mercer Island in Vision 2050 is a high capacity transit community. There's a number, I think 6 other jurisdictions plus King County in this category. And really the common denominator is that these are cities that are of a appreciable size and presently have high capacity transit connections or are planned to receive them within the 2050 planning period. So places like Shoreline, which is, and Mercer Island are receiving light rail stations in the near future. Also places like Newcastle that is planned to have bus rapid transit in 2025 and a little bit more in 2040. So that is the category that Mercer Island is in, high capacity transit communities. So the regional growth strategy has shares for the different regional growth, the different regional geographies in King County. And we apply those growth shares to the countywide population and jobs allocations to create essentially a control total for each regional geography. And I have those on the next slide. So you can see that in high capacity transit communities, 11% of the population and 6% of the jobs within King County are to be allocated to the high capacity transit communities. So in future steps, we will get all the high capacity transit communities together to deliberate about what is the most sensical way to divide that 11% of the projected growth up to individual jurisdictions. Before we get there, we have one other step in this phase of the target setting process, and that is to convert the population into housing units, because housing units and jobs are the currency of our growth targets. So that conversion is performed at this step. We use some assumptions to do that are informed by current trends in jurisdictions that are within the regional geographies. So we're using local information as well as some long-term trends that are anticipated to happen. For example, a decrease in household size to create that conversion from population to housing units. So once this step is complete, we have housing unit and job control totals for regional geographies. And this is what they are. So you can see that there's about 300,000 housing units and about 500,000 jobs to be allocated to King County overall in the period from 2019 to 2044. And how that shakes out to the high capacity transit communities, that's the HCT column in this other table. It's about 30,000 housing units and about 29,000 jobs that we'll be allocating amongst the different jurisdictions within the high capacity transit communities regional geography. So now starts the work of creating individual growth targets for cities. Our general process is to seed that conversation by developing a number of target scenarios based on data that relate to growth targets and development to give us a sense of different scenarios that would look like. So what would it look like if we took the 30,000 jobs and 29,000, 30,000 jobs, housing units and 29,000 jobs. What if we took that and split it up to each jurisdiction based on the targets we already have? What would that look like? Or what would it look like if we use the existing capacity from the Urban Growth Capacity Report to make that division? So we create a set of scenarios for each regional geography. And this is kind of our starting place for the next step, where we are going to bring all of the jurisdictions within each regional geography together to discuss that range of targets. So I'll say that we really do create these targets as a conversation starting place. Any of the numbers within the scenarios are not binding on the final targets. You don't have to fall within the high and low values that we create. It's really just to seed the conversation and decide what factors are most useful in the data in determining what growth targets might be. So really the final step towards creating our growth targets is our draft growth targets, I should say, are convening the cities, taking a look at those ranges from the last step, deciding which of, if any, of the data factors are most important. And probably the most ingredient at this step is local input from the staff, distilling information from yourselves, the council and mayor level, about the direction that your city is intending to go into the future, about infrastructure, about transit improvements, about any other anticipated major rezones that might be in the future, or other major developments. We need this kind of local information to shape the targets, so they move them away from purely database numbers, so they really encapsulate the future that the city wants to plan for. Because we want to create a set of growth targets that create the foundation for the land use assumptions that each city will be using in their comprehensive plan. So this is a deliberative process. We're in the middle of it right now, and expect it to continue through this month and the next month, really, to create a draft set of targets that we will present to the Growth Management Planning Council. So a little bit about schedule for that. We are, like I said, just convening these meetings right now, and we'll continue that through February and March if we need to. We are hoping to have a set of draft targets by March, really, that GMPC is comfortable with, including in our public review draft of the countywide planning policies. And just to talk about schedule, this slide is just to show us where we've been already. So we've had a couple of briefings to the Growth Management Planning Council about the content, the guiding principles that relate to the countywide planning policies. They've given their head nod and kind of approval to the targets methodology that I've just described to you in those general steps. At our last session in December, we didn't quite get to draft chapters, but we did preview some concepts specifically related to the development patterns chapter, the housing chapter, some of the chapters within the countywide planning policies that we know are going to have the most edits to them, really. And we also gave them a quick update about the progress that we've been making on the growth targets in the Urban Growth Capacity Report. So some of the work on GMPC's slate into 2021, we'll be convening a work study session on the policies, specifically the changes to the countywide planning policies at the end of January. So this is really, it's not a formal meeting, it's a work session. So the GMPC can really roll up their sleeves and get to understand the nature of the policy changes that staff are recommending. In February, we'll have a formal GMPC meeting where they will have a review of the strike-through changes of the countywide planning policies and hopefully a full set of draft growth targets. At the March meeting, the body will hopefully release that public review draft of the countywide planning policies and the growth targets to the public. We'll have a review period in April and May where we'll convene a GMPC meeting to review any of the comments that we've received and get their feedback on that. And then really our goal is at the end of June 2021, we're aiming to release the final version of our countywide planning policies and our growth targets, as well as the urban growth capacity report at that time. So June 2021 is really our goal for the final approval from GMPC on this body of work. And that is our presentation for you today. We would be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Rebecca, for that. And let's see if there's any questions from council members at this time. I'm not seeing anybody's hands raised, so I'm going to ask a question, I guess, at this point. So I'm intrigued by this collaborative process and the fact that as far as the high capacity transit cities, so do the 6 cities or 7 cities and the 3 potential annexation areas, it mentions that they have to reach some sort of collective agreement. And so I'm not quite sure what that is and what that process involves. Is that a unanimous vote? Is it a majority vote? I mean, how does that happen, I guess?
Yeah, I'd say that we're aiming towards a consensus process. So this is really a conversation ongoing at a staff level to understand all the kind of information that we should include as we consider growth targets. And then ultimately, what we'll be aiming for is mostly a unanimous staff recommendation about what that draft set of targets should be. So we anticipate that some jurisdictions have a really great sense about the level of their growth targets that they were hoping to plan for. Other cities might have less of a great idea at this point. We're making lots of presentations. We did in December, we're doing this month and into February, so we can speak to as many councils as possible, and so that all the staff that are participating in the process have that kind of elected officials sense about the direction that the city would like to take into the future. But really, we're aiming for as much of a consensus process as possible.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. So that's again on the staff level. So Mercerdale City Council, I guess other city councils, they don't really have a say or a vote until it's been approved by the King County Council and then submitted for a vote or ratification by the jurisdictions. Is that correct?
Rebecca, you want me to take that
Sure,
one?
go ahead, Karen.
So what is Rebecca mentioned, the growth targets are one piece of a chapter within the countywide planning policies. And so the countywide planning policies, you're correct, will be approved by the Growth Management Planning Council. We're targeting that for the end of June. But the Sound Cities Association has representatives, that 6 members actually, that sit on the Growth Management Planning Council. And as I understand it, there will be discussion and deliberation through that process. So it's kind of working through the Sound Cities Association. It doesn't come directly to a vote to the Mercer Island City Council until, you're absolutely right, through ratification. But through this approval process over the next 6 months, you can be as involved as you choose to, and that's partly why we're here today.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Thanks, Mayor. Karen, Rebecca, thanks for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to see you guys, and thanks for the presentation. I'll first kind of say that the discussion of the GMPC is pretty wide-ranging. There are cities that are concerned that the growth targets are a minimum. There's concern that they're a maximum. There's concern about, growing schools, and could they have enough infrastructure to support the growth? And maybe they need to have 2- and 3-story schools because they've run out of land to put them on to be able to accommodate more growth. So there's a lot of discussion about the levers that need to happen to accommodate growth and alleviate all of the concerns of the various cities within it. I know that cities like Fall City and North Bend have more rural components to them, but they have high growth areas. So there's just a lot of dynamic conversation occurring. But one thing that Rebecca did say is that city staff are going to be intimately involved in the development of the targets, and that it really would benefit the council to direct this, work with the city manager to direct staff to have the outcome that they wish and try and exact that. I think that will be very difficult for me on the GMPC or the council at large to kind of communicate with the GMPC short of having staff address that will. And we did have staff deliver a letter through the Vision 2050 comment period where we did kind of allude to some of the Mercer Island's concerns. We said, you know, largely we're built out. We have a lot of critical areas. We had a failed Proposition 1, so we have a revenue problem. So we have a lot of challenges infrastructure-wise and being able to scale to take more growth than was already have taken in the last round or the last prior 2 rounds. So that's on record. I think what the council needs to do is probably go back, read that letter, talk with the city manager, talk amongst ourselves and figure out, do we still believe that? Do we believe that more strongly? And then give staff direction on how they might be able to work within the GMPC to broker, negotiate, consensus deliver the goals that are most appropriate for Mercer Island and that also meet the goals of the region. So that's my spiel on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacobson.
First of all, Karen and Rebecca, thank you for your presentation. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it because you gave it, I don't have a mental org chart of how all this works just yet. I hope you do, but anyway, my question is this, and my question is prompted by some futurists or people who style themselves as that, who say that the pandemic has made some very, very fundamental changes in terms of where employment goes and what people do. And we know that our largest employer in the area, Amazon, has told at least a number of people, young people who work for it on Mercer Island, you'll be working at home through 2021 and probably for the foreseeable future, which has transportation implications and other kinds of things. So my question is, what processes exist for adjusting assumptions that were made in 2018 or thereabouts based on data for a normal, regular way of doing business, which we really don't have now, and there's some question about what that's going to look like in the future.
Yeah, so Ed, that we're working with the most current forecast we have, and we receive a new forecast from the OFM, at least on the population side, in 2022. And as a part of the growth targets, we are required to accommodate the most recent OFM projections. So we will be making absolutely sure that our assumptions in the growth targeting process that we will be completing before that forecast is released, at least line up with that new revised forecast to ensure that they're in line with the most current data. We're a little less certain about whether we will have an updated jobs or economic forecast by that time period. It's not concretely in PSRC's plans, but this is a long-range planning process. We're planning for 25 years out at this point, and there's a lot of changes that can happen in the midst. We do go through a revision of these growth targets every 7 or 8 years or so in support of the periodic update to the comprehensive plans, though. So we do get another crack at the ball should circumstances change dramatically into the future. And we also have processes, should there be a cataclysmic change, we can reopen this up again to take a look, should that be necessary. But really, we are not having a great sense of how long and the duration of these kinds of trends we're experiencing now lasting. Just a lot of different opinions, just as you referred to, reflecting on it. But we definitely are in a cycle where we've realized that another future is very certainly possible, and we might need to rethink the nature of work in general today.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, a question comes to mind. The projections for job growth and population growth and household growth are over what level? On what base?
Are you talking about years or geography or?
Well, I mean, I think the region has lost jobs recently. And so are you projecting jobs, additional jobs based on what we had last year, or additional jobs based on a recovery that we might see this year? And so, yeah.
So region and King County in general has consistently added jobs since about 2012, I'm going to say. We have had a pretty significant job growth. We have annual estimates. I know we get monthly estimates where, you know, there's been recently, obviously, a large uptick in unemployment. But on the kind of annual job totals, we've experienced job increases pretty steadily since the recovery from the previous recession. So when we create growth targets, we are going to be basing it off of the most current data that we have right now, and that is 2019. So that will form our base year, and so the growth target will be an increment of growth that we add essentially onto that 2019 base year.
Councilmember Anderall, does that answer the question for you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I said thank you, but of course I said it on mute.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions right now. I have a quick question and then a comment. You know, I'm looking at, I don't know what page this, no, slide 19, I guess. There's a reference to data factors that are used or considered. Is that something that we could see? I mean, is there a list of data factors that you guys actually, is that something that perhaps can be shared with the city manager and then she can forward it to us? I'd certainly be interested in seeing what those are.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then Councilmember Nice's point as far as getting staff information as well. Again, another opportunity for the city council to have some sort of involvement will also be through the PIC. And we're talking that as far as who's going to be doing representing the city on the PIC. And of course, Deputy Mayor Weicker is also involved in the SCA. So again, those are different avenues that we will have as council to get involved in this whole process. Anybody else have a question for Rebecca or Karen? Well, I am not seeing anybody raise their hands. So Karen and Rebecca, thank you so much for the presentation and teeing up this very important discussion that the council will have and also for the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Next on our agenda is the city manager's report. And for that, of course, we welcome city manager Jesse Bond.
Good evening again, City Council. I just want to mention we started our meeting with, unfortunately, a few technical snags, including Alfredo and I are here in council chambers without heat. So how's that for starting 2021? Speaking of, let's go ahead and screen share my city manager report. Oh dear, here. And before I begin, City Council, I just wanted to mention that when you moved to amend the agenda previously, you added an executive session at the end of the evening. We had not yet gotten you the appropriate RCW reference for that executive session. So just for quick process clarification, before you convene your second executive session this evening, I will ask the mayor to read the appropriate citation for that RCW. So Mr. Mayor, we'll get that to you via email prior to that executive session. All right, well, here we are. It is 2021. finally, Happy New Year, everyone. I know I'm certainly looking forward to a different year than the one we had in 2020. We have lots of work ahead of us in terms of a city work plan, and I'm sure just a number of other things in terms of getting back to our new pandemic normal. Anyway, Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone, the community, the council, for your support and resiliency through 2020. Looking forward to positive things to come. Lots of updates tonight since we have not had a meeting since the early part of December. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, this is a slide that I was showing as part of my previous city manager reports. It's just a snapshot of where the city of Mercer Island is in terms of COVID-19 case counts. As of yesterday, January 4th, that should actually say 2021, we had 378 confirmed cases. That was up since the last time I reported on this, which the number was 289 cases as of December 1st. I will just say, having not looked at the data real close before talking about it this evening, that's one of the bigger jumps I've seen in the time that we've been reporting on our case count. So I will just remind our community members, stay vigilant, practice distancing, and continue to wear your masks, and let's get through together this I guess they're calling it now a third wave of COVID cases. If you need assistance, please, for any reason, questions about COVID-19, any information you're hearing, certainly we're still receiving a lot of changes and new information from the governor's office. Our call center is 206-275-7626. We're happy to assist you. And we are continuing to keep resources updated on our Let's Talk page. Tonight, in fact, just shortly before we commenced our 5 o'clock executive session, Governor Jay Inslee held a press conference announcing a new two-phase COVID-19 recovery plan. I had a brief opportunity to read through his press release before coming in here, but I don't have it down entirely. So generally, the new plan begins January 11th with every region starting in what is now a new phase 1. We, along with Snohomish and Pierce counties, are combined into a region. There are a total of 8 regions now under this new two-phase plan. And there are criteria that we have to meet as a region to move to phase 2. That's all mapped out. I didn't have time to build it into this presentation this evening. We will be updating our community through press releases and social media blasts in the next day or two. And also working to get this information up on the Let's Talk page. And I'm sure the news media is also covering this as well. Okay, lots of other operations updates. I'll start with city council meetings and board and commission meeting update. Just a reminder, I've said this probably every council meeting for some time now. We are still working under Proclamation 2028, which extends the open public meetings statutory authority, basically waives that and allows us to continue meeting virtually through January 19th. I suspect, given COVID case counts, this will continue to be extended. Your next city council meeting is Tuesday, January 19th. We do have a number of board and commission meetings coming up. By the way, most of the board and commission meetings, I should say board and commissions, are back to a almost regular schedule. We may not be quite there yet, but we're getting there. If I haven't said thank you recently to our board and commission members for hanging in there through a pretty challenging 2020. Thank you. We are getting the work plan engine revved up again, and we are trying to get back on track. We do keep all of our board and commission meeting schedules updated on the city's website with the link provided there. A couple things that are coming to the boards and commissions that I wanted to alert you to. City Council, during the 2021-22 budget discussions, you may recall that you allocated startup funds for the Mercer Island Community Event Center and recreation programming. The restart planning work for those services is underway. We actually got started in November. Staff, along with assistance of a consultant, are working on the restart plan. We will be beginning our discussions with the Parks Commission actually this Thursday. In fact, I'm aware that it's on their agenda for this Thursday and then a special meeting on the 21st as well. I presume that there will be multiple touches on this restart plan as pandemic regulations are changing. We anticipate lots of change this year. What I can tell you preliminarily is we're looking at starting back summer camps this June, likely contract summer camps. So that's where we're contracting with another party to provide the services. And then we're still working on how the other services will phase back in. So this also will be coming to you, City Council. You'll have multiple touches over the year as well. We do have a Let's Talk page, and the link is there if you'd like to follow along. And if you have time, please join in the Parks and Rec Commission meeting this Thursday. Also in Parks and Recreation, and actually coming to you, City Council, on Tuesday, wow, I keep doing this. It's January, not June. Tuesday, January 19th, we will have a joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the purpose will be to basically take two, kick off the PROS planning process. The PROS plan is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. It is a 6-year strategic plan. We started the process at the end of 2019, and then we suspended the planning process in March of 2020 due to the pandemic. We're about a third of the way through the process, and we're gonna pick up now. Why now? Why are we taking this on? Your current plan expired in January of 2020. And this is significant because in the absence of an approved plan, we are not eligible for a number of state grants through the Recreation and Conservation Office. This is a concern to me and something that we do want to address because we have a number of capital projects in the pipeline that would in fact be eligible for those grant programs. So we want to go ahead and get back to work on this plan and hopefully have it adopted by the end of the year. As I've already mentioned, it's a 6-year plan. It provides the strategic planning policy framework for all of our parks and recreation services. And it's also a key document that informs your future capital investments. We also have a Let's Talk page that we're getting up and running, or I should say dusting off the cobwebs on the PROS plan if you'd like to engage. So we'll see you on January 19th to kick off this topic. Couple of city updates. Water main break. It wouldn't be a holiday season without something happening. So early December 23rd, City Council and community members, I believe you're aware, we had a water main break. It was a 24-inch Seattle Public Utilities supply main located near 40th Street and 96th Avenue Southeast. This water main is important to us. It provides primary service for the city's reservoirs and the Shorewood complex. In fact, I know some of you weren't aware of this. Shorewood receives their water from SPU, not from the city. So we worked quickly. We got them on a backup line. SPU was out on site immediately. We had all hands on deck to assess the situation. You can see the photo there of the water. We assisted SPU with road closures, traffic control equipment, and the like. I'm happy to say that we were able to, and you can see it in this picture there, implement what's called an intertie. It's basically connecting the SPU system to the city system so that we could restore service to Shorewood. I should mention we moved our reserve water system to a backup line, but we had to do the intertie to make sure that Shorewood could get water service. We also, on December 24th, when it rains, it pours, no pun intended, had an adjacent water leak that was detected on one of our water mains. It was one of our 6-inch mains. We've gotten that repaired. And so where are we? Here is a picture. I'm always fascinated by these things of the 24-inch SPU main line. That crack right there is the break in the line. That is just a rag. So we are continuing with our intertie temporarily. SPU is working on the repairs to the line. I understand that the welding is complete and there's a couple other steps they need to take. Once the repair is done, they will be flushing and completing next steps, including water sampling to get the main back online. We are in regular, daily, twice daily, 3 times daily communication with SPU. And again, I want to extend my thank you to all of our maintenance crews, both the city crews and SPU crews, for working through the holiday on this matter, and also for the community and those that were affected by this. I know the timing to lose your water was not ideal. So thank you for your patience. Appreciate everyone's good work, and we'll keep you posted as soon as the repair is complete. In other news, I wanted to touch base on concerns regarding an increase in theft and crime here on Mercer Island. It is confirmed, the police department, as well as our neighboring cities, we have seen an increase in theft cases here on the island. You've certainly seen a lot of posts on social media about this. Criminals are targeting, and there are some very specific targets, unlocked vehicles. In fact, if you've seen some of the Ring camera videos, they're literally capturing people walking down the street in and out of driveways and jiggling your car door handles. So lock your vehicles, take your valuables out of your car. Also targeting bicycles, storage areas in condos and apartment buildings. A couple things, well, we're doing a lot of things. Here's what I can share. We have police officers out walking town center. They're also meeting with condo and apartment owners to talk about security measures they may be interested in implementing. We're also looking at other types of security improvements, lighting, and we're utilizing other less obvious strategies. We've got our crews out in unmarked vehicles as well. We appreciate you continuing to call in suspicious behavior. I still do once in a while see things posted on social media, and they're not always called into police. So just a reminder, make the call. We're happy to hear from you, even if you're not sure of what you're seeing. We also, some other things you should be aware of. We are coordinating with King County's automatic fingerprint identification system and team to take fingerprints when we've got prints at scenes. So that is happening. I know there was a question about that recently. We have detectives working these cases. You might think it's a petty theft. We're not following up. We are, in fact, and we are also collaborating closely with our neighboring police agencies. We know that we're not alone, and likely these people are moving from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Reminder, as a property owner, if you have questions about improving the security of your property or residence, we're here to help. In fact, I will go to the next slide. We have do-it-yourself crime prevention tips on our website. We also launched last year a virtual neighborhood watch program. Officer Jennifer Franklin is available and we'll actually do a training so you get your neighbors together, and we do it virtually now so everybody can join from their home, and we'll talk about things that you can do in your neighborhood to help prevent crime. It's a great program. I've talked to a few people that have been through it, and I encourage you all to sign up. And we'll, City Council, just so you know, we pushed out some additional media on this last week, and we will continue to push out tips and updates to the community. Other city service updates. Let me start here. You may recall at the end of November, we had a landslide near the 5600 block of East Mercer Way. We did have a closure of the road, that section of East Mercer Way, for a short time. We installed portable traffic signals December 4th, and this was after our last council meeting, so I haven't had an opportunity to update you. And we were able to restore 1 lane of traffic. It's better than nothing, but I need to let you know it's going to be like this well into the summer while we work on an engineering and design solution. We do anticipate completing construction on the repair this summer as part of your summer road construction project. So we're in design now and working as quickly as we can. Of course, this type of work we do perform in the summer due to weather. I should mention PSE and Patelco crews had to move a service pole. That work has also now been completed. So we're on our way. Thank you for your patience. Drive safely. I know the one-lane traffic is inconvenient, but we are making good progress on a design. Lots of water-themed incidents to share with you. It is that time of year where the Mercerdale Park Playground is underwater. There's the picture there. The heavy rains just the last few days have filled the playground. City Council, you're probably aware, we've talked about this. It's one of our capital improvement projects. The drainage at this playground has failed, I don't know, several years ago. The playground equipment is also nearing the end of its useful life. So as a reminder, we have a capital project slated for this summer, 2021, to replace this equipment. And at that time, we will basically overhaul the whole playground and get in there and repair all the drain lines as well. We have not commenced work yet on the design. It's one of the more exciting things we get to do is work with the community on selecting playground equipment. So more information on that will be coming soon. In the meantime, the playground is closed for safety reasons. Hey, in a non-water related update, I'm really excited that this project has finally launched. We now have installed a new restroom locking system at our parks restrooms. So Aubrey Davis Park, Luther Burbank, Mercerdale, and some of the others. And council, what this does, this is one of those fantastic efficiency projects for us, is the locks are now automated. The locks are now automated. So the restrooms will lock between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. It really is going to cut down on vandalism that we're experiencing. It also is much less labor intensive. We don't have to run around and lock and unlock buildings. One of the questions we were asked is, what happens if the door locks when you're in there? There's a crash bar, you can get out. So that system is gone live and it seems to be working really well. Thanks to the team for continuing to work on implementation of this system during the pandemic. Thrift shop remodel project, just a reminder, whoops, let me go back. In November, the City Council suspended our work on the thrift shop remodel project. We were looking at separating donation processing from the thrift shop itself. We stood up a Let's Talk page seeking feedback on potential alternative sites for consideration. The process is still open. We left that open until January 9th since we were a little delayed getting the Let's Talk page up. So I will just remind you, if you have additional thoughts or suggestions, please submit them. I will be reviewing with staff next week and then talking with the City Council about next steps. Staffing updates, I do have a few announcements we shared last week. I will share them here again. We are very sad that we will be saying farewell to Chief Steve Heitman. He's accepted a new position as the Chief of the Renton Regional Fire Authority. This is an amazing career opportunity for him, where he will be overseeing 180 personnel and seven separate fire stations. Steve has been with us since 2001 as a firefighter, and he worked his way up through the ranks, becoming the deputy fire chief in 2008 and then our fire chief in 2014. Steve will be with us through the end of January, helping me with some transition planning, which, by the way, I know the question is, Jesse, what's the plan? Just started working on it. Steve and I had an initial meeting yesterday, and I will certainly be updating you, City Council, as we make some decisions. With that, thank you, Chief Heitman, for your many years of service to the community. You will be dearly missed, and we wish you well. Steve will have one more council meeting with us, so you'll have a chance, City Council, to say your farewells at that time. Also announced last week, I am really excited that Matt Mornick has accepted the position of Finance Director. You may recall he's been serving with us since March as our interim Finance Director. Of all of the things, I think Matt was very brave when he said yes to the interim position in the middle of, well, I guess the pandemic was just starting, because it was a really, really tough 2020 for the Finance Department. So thank you, Matt, for your incredible work this past year, and welcome officially to the team. Also announced last week in our senior leadership team, Elaine Summergren has accepted the position of Public Works Deputy Director. City Council, I won't torture you tonight with the updated organization chart. I will just remind you that in part of our restructure last year, all of the maintenance teams have been combined into one division, and Elaine will now be leading that team. As you know, Elaine has been with the city since 2008 and has worked in a variety of capacities, parks maintenance, park planning, others, and wore many hats this past year during the pandemic. So congratulations, Elaine, and welcome to the team, the Public Works team. City Council, I will mention, I've got a handful of other staffing updates to make. I will be sharing those with you in the coming weeks and probably months, actually, as we're working through a number of transitions. All right, some good news slides here to wrap up my presentation. To the YFS Foundation and to the community, thank you so much. It's really exciting to share that the YFS Foundation sold 1,100 trees and wreaths, which netted about $44,000 for the foundation after expenses. And I'm told that about 75 different volunteers helped with this effort. I also heard that the new You Can't Twirl and Touch Your Tree program worked out just well. So thank you all for adapting to the COVID-19 tree lot protocols. All donations received support the city's food pantry directly, as well as providing general support to the Youth and Family Services Department in 21. Again, thank you for everyone that made this happen. Also, a thank you to the Mercer Island Preschool Association. Many of you are aware, they decided, I think this literally came together in like 2 weeks, to produce a holiday lights driving map. And they encouraged the community to join in, light their houses. The houses were on a map, which they then sold with proceeds benefiting the Youth and Family Services Department. So I'm told we were just shy of $9,000 with that fundraiser, a total of 684 orders. So I want to thank the entire MIPA team for your efforts, and hey, you're hired. You guys did a great job coordinating this event. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. And one more thank you from over the holidays. Our wonderful community provided a holiday meal to the Mercer Island Police Department staff on Christmas. We had obviously a number of officers that were working that day and that night. They were really pleased with that, your wonderful generosity. The food looks fantastic, by the way. So thank you, community, for supporting our police officers. And finally, on the lights topic, the lights continue in Town Center. City Council, you might recall that we had intended to light the Greta Hackett Outdoor Sculpture Gallery. We had a couple hiccups in December and weren't able to install the lights until just recently. But that's good news, because I think we all need a little joy and another reason to get out and support our businesses in the town center and do something outside of our homes during the pandemic. So artist, public space consultant George Lee has created this installation. You can learn more about it on the city's Story app. And this is the first of 3 art installations planned for the town center during the first half of 2021. So the entire Illuminate MI installation, which includes the trees that are currently lit on 78th and those that are also lit near the Starbucks, will remain in place through the end of January and maybe just a little bit longer. All right, City Council, that was a long presentation. I had a lot to catch up on. Thank you very much. And I will turn this back over to Mayor Wong.
Let me get unmuted. Thank you, Jesse, for that report. You did cover a lot. There's been a lot going on in the past month or so. Tonight's agenda will not include an in-person public appearances in accordance with the Proclamation 20-28.14 and the Governor's extended Safe Start order. However, individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone or by using the Zoom teleconferencing application, provided, however, they register their desire to speak with the city clerk's office by 4 p.m. today. The city clerk will call you by name or telephone number when it is your turn to speak. This is your opportunity to, for anyone to speak to the city council on any item, all remarks will be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council members or staff members. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council, I may request that the person leave the meeting. When it is your turn to address the council, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. And your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. A 3-minute timer will be visible on your computer screen. City Clerk, I understand that there's one person who signed up. Will you please introduce that person?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have Victor Races on the line. Just give him a moment to turn on his camera and his volume, assuming he wants both.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Victor.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Victor Rashis. I'm a Mercer Island resident and a business owner. I'm appearing before you today to express my disappointment and disgust with how the City Council handled the amendment to subsidize the Mercer Island Chamber of Commerce during the last City Council meeting on December 1st, 2020. While I disagree with the outcome of the vote, my comments tonight are focused on the process, or lack thereof, that was followed or not followed by the City Council. We are currently in the midst of a political crisis at a national level where our democratic institutions and processes are being attacked. I hope we all understand the importance of a transparent government, open meetings, public engagement, ethics, and following established rules and procedures as all being critical to maintaining the public trust in our government, both nationally as well as locally. Unfortunately, during the last City Council meeting, late in the evening on December 1st, the Mercer Island City Council rules of procedure were not followed. First, the council voted to waive a second reading of the budget. Given that the budget had been reviewed multiple times over the previous few months, this was not unusual. However, at least one council member knew that an amendment would be introduced immediately following the waiving of the second reading, and the council member raised no objection and still voted to waive the second reading, denying the public a say in the changes that were about to be proposed. Second, the same council member decided that their own judgment and agenda superseded the Mercer Island City Council rules of procedure and made a motion for an amendment to fund the chamber after months of budget discussions where the issue of chamber funding was not raised once. This proposed change was not on the agenda, nor was it noted in the budget. This is a violation of section 5.5, no surprise rule of the Mercer Island City Council rules of procedure. Third, the City Council voted to subsidize a third-party organization with taxpayer money in the midst of a pandemic and a financial crisis. Despite the protestations of another council member that this was not a subsidy, both during the meeting and in written communications afterwards, the word subsidized consistently appears in the language of the amendment. While not a violation of the rules of procedure, the spreading of this type of misinformation does not engender trust in our local government. Mr. Mayor, I call your attention to section 2.3C of the Mercer Island City Council Rules of Procedure, which describes duties of officers, specifically the duties of the presiding officer. I call your attention to 2 items in particular. Item number 2, presiding officer shall observe and enforce these rules. This clearly did not happen in the last City Council meeting on December 1st. Item number 8, presiding officer shall impose council member sanctions for violations of these rules consistent with section 11 of these rules. I respectfully ask that you as presiding officer perform all of your duties as specified in the Mercer Island City Council rules of procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk, again, is there any other person who signed up for appearances?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. If there's no, now we move on to the next item of business, which is the approval of the consent calendar. Consent calendar contains the approval of accounts payable reports for the periods ending December 4, 11, 18, 23, and 30 of 2020, the certification of payroll dated December 4, 18, 30, December 4, 18, and 31 of 2020, the approval of minutes of the following 2020 meetings, October 20, 22, and 26, November 2 and November 17, and December 1. Consent calendar also includes the Agenda Bill 5794, interlocal agreement for jail services with King County. Agenda Bill 5790, landscape easement modification Xinhua project. And Agenda Bill 5792, pump station generator and pump replacement closeout. Does anybody wish to pull off any item from the consent calendar? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Reynolds and seconded by Councilmember Anderall to approve the consent calendar. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Neese?
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Councilmember Anderall?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker?
Aye.
And Councilmember Jacobson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, motion passes. Council members, we've been at it now since about 5 o'clock. I'm going to propose that we take a 10-minute break before we start our regular business. Okay, so we're going to, I guess you need to mute yourself and probably stop your video, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Hey there, do you have a second if I can patch Ally in? All right. Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Okay, great. I think all the council members are here. Great. We now move to regular business item number 8 under regular business. It's Agenda Bill 5795, acceptance of Washington Department of Commerce Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund Grant. And for this discussion, we're going to be led by the Youth and Family Services Administrator, Tamby Cork. Welcome, Tamby.
Thank you. Just one moment while I share my screen. Can you see my shared screen? Are we working? All right, fantastic. Fantastic, thank you. Well, good evening, Council. For the record, Tamby Cork, your YFS Administrator. I am very pleased to be here tonight to present on the Washington Department of Commerce Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund Grant that the YFS Department has received in the amount of $243,129 to restore our 7 school-based counselor and 1 emergency assistance coordinator to full-time in the 21-22 biennium. I'll start by way of a brief history, if I may, about this grant. So we learned of this grant in late September, thanks to the Emergency Operations Center grants and time tracking team. They brought this to our attention, and given some of the parameters of the grant, it was a good fit for the YFS services. The source of the funds is a federal CARES Act funding, which has been allocated to each state by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office for Justice Programs, and in Washington State, it is being administered by the Department of Commerce. Some of the grantee and the request for proposals that we received in the fall were cued us in that this would be a good fit for us. So it's restricted to local government, tribes, and nonprofit organizations. The Commerce's allocation plan included funding for up to 10 project proposals, so it was a competitive process. The requests could be up to $250,000 with no match requirement. And the applications were limited to future projects or services that would not otherwise be budgeted or feasible during the period of January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. This was a very service-oriented grant, a little bit different than some of our other careers funding that has come before you. Specific to this grant application as well is that some of the eligible services and projects that were specifically mentioned were mental health and case management supports. And as you know, due to the pandemic-related reduction of thrift shop revenues, all of our school-based staff and emergency assistance staff are currently budgeted at a 20% furlough for this current biennium. This grant also has non-supplant language in it. So often grants come with funding that cannot be used to replace other funding, cannot supplant it. So we were able to reach out to Commerce to confirm that the restoration of these positions would not be considered supplanting, and they have confirmed that these positions are eligible for these grant funds. All of those grant parameters, in addition to the known community need for mental health, which remains high and is increasing, and the emergency and food pantry requests that are at unprecedented levels, led us to the conclusion, along with city management, city leadership, the EOC team, that the YFS positions would be an appropriate and competitive grant application proposal for these funds. The Department of Health disaster recovery models in Washington State are forecasting that the increase in behavioral health and emergency assistance needs in Washington will extend through the year 2022. So for the lifetime of this grant, these additional supports will be needed. We received notification on December 17th that we have received this grant award and are bringing it now to you for discussion. Some of the details. So the grant award covers the full 20% of the salary and the benefits for restoring these positions to full-time for the biennium for a total of the $243,129. And if accepted, the implementation date is January 11, 2021. So next week. We do have a recommendation for these funds, which I will go ahead and read to you. The staff recommendation would be to accept the Washington State Department of Commerce Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund grant in the amount of $243,129 to restore school-based and emergency assistance staffing to full-time for the 2021-2022 biennium. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I so move.
Second.
Discussion. I actually have one question, Andy.
Yeah.
In looking at the salaries and the benefits amount, the benefits are about 15% of the salaries. Is that, I thought the rule of thumb was usually a third.
Sure. So these benefits are a little bit different in that we've already budgeted for the majority of benefits for this position. Most of them are fixed cost, even whether they're a 0.8 FTE or a 1.0 FTE. So this is just the variable costs for the additional time. It's not a division in the same way. It's not a straight division problem, I guess I would say.
Thank you for thinking that. Any other questions? So it's been moved by Councilmember Jacobson, and I'm sorry, the second came from Councilmember Rosenbaum to basically accept the Washington State Department of Commerce Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund. City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderall.
Aye.
Councilmember Neese.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
And Mayor Wong.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, motion passes. Item number 9 under regular business.
Excuse me, Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, yes.
I just wanted to say that this is another example of the excellent work our staff is doing to have seen this thing on the horizon and gone after it with a vengeance. And our city benefits from this kind of activity. So good on everybody whose fingerprints are on it.
I agree. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Jacobson. I think, again, the entire council shares that belief and staff work in this area. Item number 9, again, is Agenda Bill 5788. This is only a first reading of ordinance number 21C-01, amending the Mercer Island City Code, Title 17 Construction Codes to implement the 2018 amendments to the State Building Code. And to lead us in this discussion, we have a panel of folks, interim CPD Director Jeff Thomas, Building Official Don Cole, and Fire Marshal Jeremy Hicks. Jeff, I assume you're going to take the lead at this point.
I'm going to create the mess, and then Don and Jeremy are going to clean it up for me. But good evening again, Council. Jeff Thomas, Interim Director of CPD. First thing I'm going to try and mess up here is sharing my screen. So let me give that a go and see if that works. Just bear with me for one quick moment. Any luck on that?
Looks good. You're not presenting though, but we can see the screen. There you go.
Yeah, great. Okay, we're going to run you through just a few quick slides here, and then Don and Jeremy are obviously available to answer any questions, technical issues that you may want to ask or discuss. So 2018 Construction Code adoption. What these are essentially the set of regulations that prescribe how buildings are constructed. Updates primarily are mandated by the state of Washington. We do have some, but limited local control. The updates that are part of Exhibit 1, which is the proposed ordinance that's in your packet, are consistent with the suite of base model codes from the International Code Council, et cetera, as well as the Washington amendments to those model codes. And then in Exhibits 2 and 3 in your packet, there are, Exhibit 2 actually then summarizes at a really high level everything that's contained in Exhibit 1, essentially. Exhibit 3 then also contains some additional optional changes via the Zone 1 fire marshals. And we also have a few other handful of administrative optional changes to our local chapter, administrative chapter, to remain consistent with our group that we're a part of, MBP, mybuildingpermit.com, through the eGov Alliance. The deadline to complete all this, mandated from the state, is February 1st, so that is coming up quick. The original date was back in July, and then COVID postponed that date a few times, but February 1st is holding firm at this point. These construction codes are generally updated every 3 years. Currently, we're using the 2015 construction codes. I will tell you just an editorial comment, the International Code Council, they're like an economy within an economy. They're already working on the 2021 suite of code updates that will roll forward here a few years that we'll be adopting down the road. So it's a never ending cycle. It just keeps going around and around. Just to show you the list here, I'm not going to go through all of these. This is what's contained within these 2018 construction codes adoption. I don't recommend that you start at page 1 of the IBC and try and work your way forward through every page. They're very technical, complex documents that are used when our building plan reviewers and our fire plan reviewers and so forth, and all of our inspectors are working with plan sets and real construction projects going through the permitting stage or are being built out in the field. So just a warning for you there. We did talk a little bit about public outreach in the agenda bill. And the best way I could really summarize it on a PowerPoint slide is what you see here. Our Washington Association of Building Officials, they're doing statewide type work. There's a link there you can go and check out different trainings and seminars and webinars and everything else that they're doing for this effort. Regionally, again, as a member of the mybuildingpermit.com through the eGov Alliance, lots of good things happening regionally in the Seattle area and on the east side. And then on our own website, Dawn and Jeremy have worked with our staff, doing a great job of getting some information up there as well. And we also continue to talk with customers that have questions about the impending code changes and working through technical issues with them as they're in the middle of trying to design projects and so forth. So with that, last slide, the recommended action for this evening is we're happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you may have now. And then to move this to January 19th for a second reading and adoption of the ordinance that's in your packet. So with that, Mayor, I'll stop sharing screen and turn it over to you, and we're available for anything you may need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let me just see if somebody has any hands raised at this point. Oh, I do see one. Councilmember Neese.
Thanks. Because we have the Fire Marshal, Jeremy, here, I thought I would just give you the floor for a moment to speak towards the benefit of monitored smoke and fire suppression systems in the residential development. I've had a number of conversations with residents that are, maybe they're confused or maybe they're apprehensive about remodels because of some of the fire equipment requirements, depending on the size and scale of their remodel. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to the benefits and why that is in the code and what that does for us.
Absolutely. Thanks for teeing that up, Council. Jeremy Hicks, your Fire Marshal. So there, from the fire safety standpoint, there's a lot of benefits to any monitored system. One, when the system activates, it also calls the fire department. Fire systems work really well, but getting the fire department there is kind of the end result. The firefighters are what's going to put the fire out. A lot of commentary regarding that. I've talked to a couple people this week regarding the monitored fire alarm systems and worked through that. And I know there's a lot of questions with the systems. And historically speaking, on Mercer Island, and I'm new here, as you're all aware, that Mercer Island presents a lot of challenges. in the way the roads are built and the hydrants are put in and the topography and the lengths of the roads. And what they did is they years ago, probably some of you remember this, they talked about using the monitored systems is kind of a way to work through the code to provide an alternative. Instead of having a 26-foot roadway or a fire hydrant outside your house that provides 1,500 gallons a minute, having a monitored system would allow the construction to take place and move forward. In the basis behind this is if the smoke detector goes off early, the fire department's dispatched, the crews get there, fire doubles in size every 60 seconds. So if the crews get there faster, less crews are needed, less water is needed, less personnel to put the fire out. So the only way that happens is to have the systems monitored. And I want to caveat a little bit into a story of a fire that happened, almost a month ago on the island. And it was a fire that happened in a vacant house. And not vacant house, unoccupied house, sorry about that. And the fire, I believe strongly the fire probably sat in that house for hours before being detected. And once the fire was detected, it was detected because it burnt through the wall and the neighbors saw the flames coming out of the side of the house. Smoke in that house was charged smoke probably for several hours, 12, 14 hours, that if it was monitored, that system may have contacted the fire department earlier and could have put the fire out and caused very little damage to the house. So I gave you the reason why it's important to have the monitored system and why the crews to get there faster and put the fire out. And then I just gave you a real life experience of something that happened, less than 30 days ago on the island that shows this. And by no means are they in correlation with each other, but it just ironically happened that way. So there is a lot of angst about the monitored systems. One of the ones, which I'm sure you're aware of, is the monitoring fees. And I would say 75 to 80% of the questions that I took this week on the systems were people didn't know that they have an option to change monitoring services. Monitoring is almost like your cell phone. I have Sprint. My wife absolutely hates Sprint. We're in a contract and she wants to change to Verizon. And soon as she gets her way, we will change to Verizon because she prefers that service is better in our area. And I use that story when I talk to people that if you're not satisfied with your service provider, switch. But are you mad because of this? Are you frustrated because of the monitored system that's in your house that you installed because you wanted to do a remodel that was at a certain percentage of the house value? Or are you frustrated because the service that you have monitoring the fire alarm is not providing the customer service you want? And the answer most of the time was, it was the monitoring service. Everybody was like, it's a great idea to have the fire department here early. So I probably provided you, Councilman Muniz, just a little bit more than you expected on that, but I hope I answered your question in a way.
No, I think that's great. And you're obviously hearing a lot of the sentiment that we're also hearing, maybe just me in particular, but there are options out there for folks. And just as you said, if they don't like the monitoring service that they're getting or the pricing that they're getting, they should shop the market. I can tell you for sure, if you want to email me, I can give you some very low cost options in the $5 to $10 a month range that will meet all our requirements, and they'll monitor your smoke, and that's all they will do. But there are very low cost options all the way up to home automation options. So I think people really need to look past that small price increment and look at the value that it delivers, not only for the firefighters and the safety of the firefighters being able to respond to a small structure fire instead of something fully engulfed, and your neighbors and neighborhood, all the very variables that go into it. But I just wanted to make sure that we addressed that while you were here tonight.
And I appreciate that. And also, I'll extend the same courtesy. If you haven't had an option to call my office and talk to me and you have questions, please do that. I'm really want to help people through these processes and give them a bunch of options. And nobody's been turned away that I don't think's been satisfied yet. So if you hear somebody, let me know, but I don't think I'm turning them away right now, so.
Great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Jacobson. Jake, you're on mute.
The Fire Marshal, I can certainly endorse what you had to say, and I have a little testimonial. I built a new house 8 years ago, and in conjunction with that, I installed, as required, a monitored fire alarm system. And some time went by, and I decided I would use my fireplace. So I fired up my fireplace. What I'd forgotten to do was open the damper. So my house started filling with smoke, alarms went off, in about, I don't know how many minutes, but it wasn't very many. The fire department was there and, saying, well, I guess you're stuck on stupid, Jacobson, which I was. But I was just absolutely heartened with the response and with the option that it provides, because it's better than having your house sprinkled, I think, from a variety of perspectives. So if anybody out there is, concerned about that, you can email me and I'll tell you, give you my experience with it. It's been highly positive. Plus, recently the monitoring service said we're having a funny alarm. It turned out that both my smoke detectors had gone to smoke detector heaven. And so I had to replace them and everything, but I would have never have known that until some hideous alarm went off. So I think you've got a great program.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take a quick turn here. I don't see anybody else's hand up. Marshall Hicks, just a quick question. I'm, looking at the 2018 Fire Code Amendment Summary. And so I'm just asking a question regarding all the fire marshals from King County and King County Zone 1. Do they adopt, or are they recommending to their jurisdictions the adoption of all the same all 8 items, or is there any kind of deviation?
Thank you, Mayor. A great question. So we've been meeting with COVID, we've been actually meeting longer now. We were hopefully going to do this last year sometime. And one of the goals is collaboration between agencies. And I'm sure a lot of you have worked through these experiences where a contractor or a business does one. Sorry, the alarm's going to go off in the background now. I can't turn it off. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry. So a lot of the crew or the companies work in various jurisdictions, and they have to do different things for different jurisdictions. And that becomes frustrating, not only to the customer, but the contractor and the applicant. And of course it happens, sorry. I'm so sorry for that. So what Zone 1 Fire Marshals has been doing is trying to get this code to align better. Every time we take a crack at it, we're getting closer and closer and closer to work collaboratively. And that's Zone 1. We also participate in all of the King County fire marshals, and they're doing the same thing too, recognizing that how frustrating this is for companies. So with these amendments that you have in front of you, the Zone 1 fire marshals is adopting at least these. There's a couple more that they put in that really are more specific to high rises or a little more urban setting than we are. And instead of going after those, I was really trying to get something that matched our area, that made a difference for our constituents.
Great, thank you. Any other questions right now? I can't let Don Cole not answer a question, so I'm just going to ask in general. Obviously, as Jeff Thomas mentioned, a lot of these things are mandated. So I'm just curious, are there any unfunded mandates, or are these, again, obviously I realize we're required to adopt them, but at what cost? I mean, I guess I want to make sure that there's no unfunded mandate.
Well, thank you for the question on that. And I do believe, Don Colville and officials forgot to announce myself, and there definitely are mandates that you might consider unfunded. You can get funding for it. We've addressed that in our fee schedule, our updated fee schedule in 2020. So you saw our energy code fee, especially for commercial energy code, double. The commercial energy code became very, much more restrictive, a lot more staff time is required to enforce that. And we had basically, like I said, you can see how we reflected that in our fee schedule, that increase. So I guess to answer your question, there's funding on that. There's some unfunded stuff that's coming through RCWs right now, like with licensing laws that we can't really collect. So, we met today regarding the new plumbing licensing laws to try to make sure we address those that are required by the state. But the time involved will be minimal on that. So I guess to answer your question, there's definitely a lot more. You'll see the code doesn't get smaller, the code grows. You can see all the significant changes that we provided on the list that we gave to our constituents to try to make sure that they're ready. We had training like Jeff talked about. There's still training available on our website. If people that haven't took it yet, they could go there and try to get some training we have links to. So that hopefully will help. But every time we have a code change, with all these different code changes, it makes the whole process harder and longer because the designers aren't used to these code changes. We're doing the review. They're seeing them a lot of times for the first time if they haven't gone to any training on it. So it definitely takes more time for our staff. In the beginning, by the end of a code cycle, everybody's pretty well trained up. Both our staff trains up earlier, but the design professionals are trained up by the end of the code cycle. But then we have a new code every 3 years that's introduced and kind of start the cycle again. But to answer your question, we have definitely addressed with our fee revenues the additional work we expect.
So basically, from what I'm hearing, I mean, it's all baked into the, we're trying to cost recover most of the additional costs. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Councilmember Reynolds.
Mr. Cole, I want to expand on the mayor's question because if I'm understanding you correctly, you addressed it from the unfunded mandate aspect from the viewpoint of the city. What about from the viewpoint of the homeowner? Is there any estimate of how much this will add to the price of an average home?
Yeah, when the state goes...
It's a bad idea regardless, but I just want to know.
Yeah, when the state goes through the code adoption process, they do a kind of like a cost, especially with the energy code. They basically go through a whole bunch of back and forth with regard to different, we have what they call a tag group that studies the code adoption process. And during that tag committee group and afterwards, they come up with a cost that they expect these changes to reflect, and they have a lot of back and forth. And so that's looked at the state process. We don't do it in a local process, but the state process, they definitely go through that exercise.
And do you know what the answer is? Does it come down to the whole $3,000 per home or anything like that?
I don't know. I didn't look what the specific amount was this year. I could find that for you.
I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, you bet.
Good. Thank you. Any other hands? Apologize to you, Councilwoman Reynolds. I didn't see it. I'll have to scroll a little bit faster here. If there is, again, this is the first reading. This is a lengthy, complicated ordinance. You folks will have time to go through it at your leisure. But if there's no other questions, I certainly would like to entertain a motion to set ordinance number 21C-01 to January 19 for the second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second then.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councilmember Neese and seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. to move this to a second reading on January 19, 2021. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Wong?
Oh, I'm sorry, did you, oh,
Yes.
yes, aye.
Try to keep you guessing.
Yeah.
Councilmember Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
And Councilmember Anderl.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, motion passes. Item number 10 on our regular business is Agenda Bill 5791, 2021 City Council Liaison assignments. There is really no action to be taken. I'm just going to report out that after speaking with the city manager, the city council members, it was agreed that the council members would remain in their current assignments through 2021 to ensure continuity for staff during what will continue to be a time of great transition. That said, I have asked Councilmember Rosenbaum to serve as Mercer Island's representative to the Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee, commonly known as the PIC, and I will now serve as the alternate to the PIC. For the record, the 2021 Council Liaison appointments are as follows. Arts Council, Councilmember Celine. Disability Board, Council members Jake Jacobson and Dave Rosenbaum. Open Space Conservancy Trust, Councilmember Lisa Anderall. Parks and Recreation Commission, Councilmember Jake Jacobson. Utility Board, Councilmember Lisa Anderall. As far as the committees, the Sustainability Committee, that's Council members Salim Neese, Craig Reynolds, and myself. As far as local assignments, we have a few of those. The School District Superintendent Advisory Council, Councilmember Dave Rosenbaum is the liaison. To the School District Superintendent Equity Advisory Council, I'm the liaison. On the Mercer Island PTA Advocacy Committee, Councilmember Rosenbaum is the liaison. On regional assignments, East Side Transportation Partnership, that's Councilmember Jacobson and also Councilmember Reynolds. King County Cities Climate Collaboration, K4C, that's Deputy Mayor Wendy Weicker. Renton Airport Advisory Committee, that's Councilmember Celine Neese. As I mentioned before, the SEA Public Issues Committee, the representative will be Councilmember Rosenbaum, and I will serve as the alternate. The WRIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council, Councilmember Lisa Anderall is our liaison. On the Safe Energy Leadership Alliance, that's Councilmember Craig Reynolds. And on the King County Regional Water Quality Committee, I serve in that on that committee. So that is actually the end of our regular business. And it is now 9:08 p.m. As for those who have been listening in, earlier we moved to add an addition, we amended our agenda to add an executive session after the regular business, following which action may be taken by the council in a subsequent open session. To clarify the purpose of this executive session, City Council will recess into executive session for approximately, I'm going to say 60 minutes to receive and evaluate pursuant to RCW 4230.110, paren 1, close paren F, close paren, complaints brought against a public officer. Again, after executive session, action on this matter may be taken by the council in open session. And at that point, I guess I'm going to have to ask the city clerk if there's a new link.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Council members, a link was just sent to all of you to allow you to join our executive session. For those of you at home, this Zoom link will remain live while we recess, and we will be coming out of exec session, as Mayor Wong indicated, in what we anticipate about 60 minutes. Council, just to allow us a couple minutes to transition, I have to physically move locations, and we'll pick up at the executive session in 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember Jacobson.
Normally we would have reports this time. I have 2 reports for my assignments to give. I can do it now or later. I prefer to do it now because there's some things that are probably of interest to the community. So they'll be brief.
I don't know if we have, City Clerk, do we have any process for this, or is this?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, the city attorney recommended that we go into executive session as part of the regular business of the meeting because that was the amendment earlier in the meeting. And so other business would take place after the regular business.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Jacobson, sounds like you're gonna have to wait until we come back out of exec session. So,
Mayor Wong?
Yes.
Just a point of order, I guess, or a question. I mean, what if we are done in 30 minutes in the exec session? I mean, how will anybody who's watching from the outside know that they should tune in 30 minutes instead of 60? Or would we just, if we are done in 30 minutes, we just wait for 60 minutes before we reconvene?
That's correct, Councilmember Andrew. We are required, if we announce a 60-minute executive session, to not resume open session until those 60 minutes have passed. So yes, even if we finish our work in 30 minutes, we would have to wait the full 60 before we resume back in open session.
So if that's the case, City Attorney, perhaps changing the approximate 60 minutes to 30 minutes would probably be a better way to go. And if we need more time, we can simply extend it. So, City Clerk, do I need to make any changes there, or are you just going to note it up that the approximation for the executive session will be 30 minutes? Okay. All right, so
Preference, Mr. Mayor, would be that you repeat the executive session RCW and the time that you plan to be in executive session for the record so that there's no confusion.
All right, very good. Okay. To clarify the purpose of this executive session, City Council will recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes to receive and evaluate pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren F, close paren, complaints brought against a public officer. Again, after executive session, action on this matter may be taken by the council in open session. So, heeding the city manager's request, we will reconvene, I guess, an executive session in 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll see you folks in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for those who are still with us this evening. We are extending the executive session for an additional 15 minutes until approximately 10:05. Thank you.
And I think, is Celine here?
Mayor, we are live.
Okay, great. Okay, we are back. Council held an executive session for approximately 45 minutes via Microsoft Teams. No action was taken. So it brings us now back to our regular meeting, agenda, sorry. The next item is basically other business in the planning schedule, city manager bond.
Mr. Mayor, I just left the planning schedule on my desk, so lucky you. My update will be brief. Your next city council meeting, as a reminder, is Tuesday, January 19th.
Great, that was short and sweet, okay. Any upcoming council member absences? None, okay. How about council member reports? Deputy Mayor Weicker.
I just want to thank Chief Heitman for his years of service. Really appreciate it and wish him well.
Okay, Councilmember Lisa Andrew.
Since the last meeting, I think we have had meetings of the Open Space Conservancy Trust and the Utility Board, but they were a long time ago, and I do not have my notes in front of me. If anybody wants more details, I can certainly dive back into those. But and there's an upcoming Utility Board meeting a week from today.
Great. Okay. Councilmember Reynolds.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Rosenbaum.
I'll just echo Wendy. Thanks, Chief.
Okay. And City Manager, we will have an opportunity to also thank him at the next meeting.
Yes, Chief Heitman is not going to get out of here without one more council meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Councilmember Jacobson.
The East Side Transportation Partnership, as part of every transportation association in King County, met a couple weeks ago, and I will just send out the report of it because there are a whole lot of interesting minutia or uninteresting minutia, depending on how you look at it. And also the Parks and Rec Commission met last December 7th, I believe it was, and I will send out a memo that summarizes that meeting and some issues that are going to land on our desks here in a while.
Great. Councilmember Neese.
No report.
Okay. I just wanted to report that actually a few of us, I think Councilmember Rosenbaum and I, those are the names I saw, are going to be attending tomorrow breakfast, East Side Chamber of Commerce forum, where they're going to discuss business issues and legislative agendas and what have you. Also, it's not too early to put on your calendar if you haven't signed up for the YFS Foundation breakfast on February 10. So, everybody is planning to attend. So, other than that, I have no other item, and so I think we are now adjourned, unless anybody has any new business that they want to bring forward. I see none. Again, reminder to council, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the broadcast, and good evening and stay safe and healthy.